I have now for many years been working, investigating the characteristics of people performing on a high level, people who are successful in life, want to find out how their brain works and what kind of attitudes and what kind of thinking they are doing. I'm doing this as a professor, associate professor at Oslo and Akershus University College in Oslo, where I've been working, teaching management and organizational development. I have been teaching classes up to 500 students in this field. And I'm working with my colleague, Professor Fred Travis from Maharishi University of Management in USA. We are complementary to each other. His field is the brain and psychology, and I am in management and organization and development. I think the most interesting findings today is two important things. Is that those people who are performing on a high level have a more integrated brain. There is a physiological signature in the brain, how the brain functions, that underlies a high performance. And that I think is very interesting today, because there is so much, the brain is so much in the attention of people. They want to find out more about how the brain works. So we are contributing to that. And the other thing which is interesting about these world-class performers is they have these peak experiences, which we think are glimpses of higher consciousness. There are moments when they are performing and there is no resistance. They have a very intense inner happiness. They have expanded awareness. And almost always when I ask people about the best performances, they use the word feeling invincible, and which is it's a good characteristic of feeling so much that you are in command of the situation, that things are moving your way, that you are achieving what you want to do. So it's a very gratifying experiences that these people are relating. And I should add, we have in our research controls, people who are performing on the average level. And they are also reporting, but not so frequently, but they are also often reporting these peak experiences. This is in tune with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's Maharishi Vedic Science, where he is introducing the idea of higher states of consciousness, which are states where we have an inner peace and a permanent inner happiness. And these peak experiences often, we think, are glimpses of higher consciousness. Well, I think this is where Maharishi has really one of his major contributions to our understanding of life, is that, you know, this inner growth, you might call it spirituality or higher consciousness, is for everybody. It's not only for the people who are living a recluse life, but it's also for people who are living an active life. They're having a family, they're having children, they're having jobs. And so it's a very practical thing. It just means that we as humans, you probably heard that, that we use a very little percentage of our mental potential. William James, one of the founders of modern psychology, said it's like we have the whole body and we're just using one finger. So there is a tremendous potential inherent in human being. And I think even those people we have studied who are performing on a high level, they are just at the beginning, still at an early stage of development. We all have such a tremendous potential for, and the most important thing that unfolds with higher consciousness is the happiness, the inner happiness, the bliss. That is really what is important, because I think if you look at the world, we need two things. We need more happiness and we need more love. And those two things comes automatically, spontaneously with higher human development. The limits, I think, are unimaginable. I think there is potential for creating a society where there are no wars and people are really happy and friendly and satisfied with life, and they have good relationships. I think the world will change dramatically in the years to come. We are just at the beginning of a process that has actually been going on for centuries, where we are waking up. It's a question of waking up to who we really are and starting using much, much more of our potential. And I think these world-class performers, they give us a little glimpse into the future. And I've also studied some organizations that are on the high level of development, and they are just a little glimpse into the future. I think society will be like these organizations. They are just pioneers into the future. We are doing 3 measures in terms of the brain. It's the coherence, meaning how well the different parts of the brain are in synchrony or collaborating with each other. And different parts of the brain have different responsibilities. And then we're looking at the level of wakefulness, how awake the person is, and also how economically his brain or her brain works. Are they wasting mental energy, or are they using it in an optimal way? And this is what we find with the high performers. And the very interesting thing is when we study orchestras, for instance, or sports team performing on a high level, and ask the players to express what they feel, then the same qualities comes out, that the team is functioning in a very coherent way, that it's very awake, the players are very awake, very alert, and that they are very economical in the way they are behaving or acting. So we find the same characteristics in high-performing organizations as we do in high-performing brains. And there is actually a very interesting study at Max Planck Institute in Germany, where they have hooked up jazz players, teams of 2 players, many teams. And what they find when they play the jazz music is that not only does the brain become more coherent, music is good for creating coherent brain, but actually between the people, the brain gets to be in synchrony with each other or get coherent. So we can see in a society or an organization that is higher developed, people, the brains are going to be behaving in synchrony or in coherence with each other. And I think that will mean a behavior that is very stimulating and rewarding for everybody involved. So I think this is again a little glimpse of a future that could be very interesting to study. There are 3 things we know, but it might be more things, like we haven't looked into, for instance, your diet, or what we know is that physical exercise is good, and that music is good, especially playing music, but also listening to music, and then certain types of meditation, which are good for, and these, of course, are very complementary. Ideally, you should do all 3 of them. In terms of meditation, there is a very wide spectrum in the effect they have on the brain and on our behavior and our level of performance and happiness. When we have looked closely, it's very clear from the research that the most effective technique is called Transcendental Meditation, the technique that was introduced by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi some 50, 60 years ago in the West. That is by far the most effective technique, and also, and I think that is actually the reason why it's so effective, it's the most easy and comfortable technique to perform. In fact, what is I found to be interesting is that the characteristics of performing or meditating according to Transcendental Meditation, you find the same characteristics as you do in the peak performance. Because peak performance is effortless, and Transcendental Meditation is effortless. Peak performance is joyful, Transcendental Meditation is joyful. So it is actually just the same qualities that we find in the peak performers. What we find in conclusion is that the qualities that the high performance or the peak performance have are exactly the same qualities that TM or Transcendental Meditation develops in you. So it's very clear. But actually TM goes beyond high performance, because I think even though we talk mainly about high performance, but even more important than high performance is inner happiness. And that is really where TM is a fantastic tool in developing more inner happiness. And by inner happiness, I mean, it's not when you get a new car or you get a new jacket or you feel happy, that's object referral happiness, but after a month or two, it's not so intense happiness anymore. But then they have the other alternative happiness, which is the inner self-referral happiness. And that is happiness without any reason for being happy, just being happy all the time. And that is very, very important. That is what every individual wants and what the world needs. We studied people who are performing on the top in the world. The athletes were picked by the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences and the Norwegian Olympic Preparatory Committee. And they athletes had to be placed among the first 10 in the world for 3 different seasons. Most of them had gold medals in Olympic Games or World Championship. And one of them we studied, I think, has now 54 medals in World Championships or Olympic Games. I think it's a world record, no doubt. And so these people are very high level of performance. And then we studied musicians, professional musicians. That means they were permanently employed by high-ranking orchestras in Norway and Sweden. And then we studied managers, top-level managers who had been on top on average for 18 years in major corporations and in the government in Norway. And in each case we compared to average performers. And we found this difference. And one thing, I've talked about the difference in the way the brain functions and in the frequency of peak experiences. But they also, which is perhaps a bit surprising, had higher levels of moral reasoning. That the world-class performers had significantly higher levels of moral reasoning on the psychological test than the average performers. So it shows you that virtue pays, that if you are thinking in an ethical way, you are actually performing on a higher level, and which I think is very gratifying, because it makes sense, it should be like that. So these people that we studied are good role models for the young, for instance. They are really people that you could look up to and respect, and it's very gratifying that this came out of the research. They are very practical people. They have families and they have jobs, and they want to do something, contribute something for the world. They feel it's a mean. These people are intrinsically motivated. They are motivated. They are looking for more happiness, for mastery of life, for meaning, for purpose in life. And they are, so it's very interesting people to study, and they are peaceful people. And I think this is part of a bigger picture where we see that spirituality or higher consciousness becomes a very practical thing. Everyday life to make your life better. And we have to be living out in the life, because we have to have families, because it's a joy, and also because that's what propagates society. So we can't all be yogis. We have to be out there in the field of activity, and this is what we find, that, you know, we didn't test that, but it seems these people are also very happy in life. Very practical, and like Maharishi always said, that, you know, it's a very practical for being able to live a better life, to having a better relationship with yourself and with other people, to be a contributor to your society in a very constructive and positive way. And higher consciousness, I think, is the solution to everything. Because we still have challenges in life, in society, in the world, and I think the only way out of it is through higher consciousness. And if you look at our research, the conclusion is that there is a strong relationship between higher mind-brain development and higher performance. And you could ask, are there any other factors that can explain high performance? And I don't think there are. And extensive research shows, for instance, that the number of years of education that you have only explains about 1% of your performance. Now, education is, of course, very important, because if you want to be a dentist or a lawyer or an engineer, you have to know your discipline, but education doesn't seem to develop mind and brain. So these two are very complementary, transcendental meditation and education. If you can join those, you get the education, which I think is the education of the future, the education that gives you discipline knowledge, factual knowledge, and develops your creativity, your happiness, your moral reasoning, all those important personal qualities. So this, I think, is the future of education. And if you read Plato, he talks about the same thing. You have to bring physical exercise, music, and inner development into education. So it's not a new secret. It's a very old understanding. But what actually is so good today is that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi has revitalized the technique, because otherwise people always thought that meditation was very difficult and it produced a headache and it was concentration. And Maharishi said, no, it's very effortless, it's very enjoyable, and that is what's happening today, and which is a big hope for the future of the world, that we could have an education like Plato and the Renaissance were talking about, but no, we can make it a practical reality. Flow is a broader term, but it includes a peak experience. Flow means that there is a match between your challenge and your ability. So when you do that, you are not bored because there is a little challenge, so you are alert, so you feel good. And peak experience is a part of that, it's the upper end, where there are even more interesting qualities coming in than in general flow experiences. So they are in harmony, it's just that one is a broader term than the other. My reflection is that I think most people have read books saying that if you just think like that or you act like that and you assume that attitude, you'll be successful. But I think most people have been dissatisfied with that. And that is why I think there is such a huge interest in the brain. Because the brain is a concrete thing. It's not some illusion. And that's why when I talk about or research, people are always most interested in the brain. So we need something concrete. I think there are millions of books and articles written out there, but I'm questioning, and it's good stuff and it's good intention, but I think that we have to go on a deeper level, practical level, to refine the way your brain works. You see, just reading a book doesn't refine your brain. There has to be a technique. And we are talking about transcendental meditation, which we know from research refines the way the brain works. And that is the basis of higher performance. So even though the intentions are very good, I think most of these books are on a superficial level that doesn't really, in practical ways, add a significant contribution to life. And I think that is the good thing with today's society, that we have available techniques, I'm talking about TM, for refining the brain. I would define success in a more broad term than most people. I would say that if you are happy, if you have inner happiness, that is success in life. And already Aristotle has said that the purpose of life is to be happy. And we know that, for instance, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is saying that the purpose of life is to increase happiness. So I think happiness, because we can't all be world champions, but we can all be happy. and I think that is the real success. When people have a peak experiences, they say there is no resistance, everything is going automatic, they don't even think, they're just acting spontaneously. And they have this deep intuition, and they have more luck, for instance. Luck is definitely doing less and accomplishing more. And so I think the qualities of people performing at their best are the qualities of doing less and accomplishing more. Well, this is again a question of refinement of the nervous system. Because you see, our brain develops from we are birth, it's programmed into the genes to about the age of 20, 25, and then it stops develops. But if you can accomplish lifelong development of the brain, then you can definitely get up to not peaks, but permanent stages of what they call higher consciousness, where you are living in permanent bliss and permanent peace and feeling a love for everything, including yourself and everybody, and having this great creativity. And I think, for instance, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is a striking example of a person who was living in higher consciousness. Everybody just coming near to him would feel waves of happiness. So I think this is definitely possible, and I think if we had more such people in the world, it would make a huge positive influence on the world.